Hi, welcome back to The Mother You Know, The Woman You Don't. I'm going to start this week out like I do every week and by saying thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting our podcast. If you were on social, thank you for following, liking. Everything that you're doing is super helpful to us. I know it means nothing to you guys, but it means everything to us and the podcast. So we appreciate you and appreciate everybody who's just been involved in this project. This week, we have a friend of mine, Mrs. Laury Ramcharan. Lori and I met, I don't even know how long ago it was. It was several years ago. We were thrown into a work situation. I think, Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we were both really thrown into a situation and we were working very independently to try to figure out what at the time felt like a hot mess. And I think we both were kind of heads down, just working, and we were both stressed out. And I think one day I walked into the bathroom and you were in the bathroom within like the first week. uh, in the bathroom crying. And it was like, I realized that we were both struggling. And I think from that moment on, we were kind of worked together to figure out and get straight what needed to be straight. So I think you and I are what I like to keep calling trauma bonded. We're going to take that buzzword and we are bonded eternally because we worked at that company. And then that company kind of wound down and you went to another company. And then when I needed a new controller, I called you and you came back. And we started a second company and worked together for years at a second company and sat right next to each other. We laughed together, talked, cried, did all the things that just became like the world, like the work bestie. I always say we're, I think, an unlikely duo. I think we don't have the same friends. We don't have the same life experience. We don't have any of the things, whatever. I think I'm probably 10 years older than you. Like, how old are you?
At 40.
Okay. Yeah, I'm solid 10 years older. 9 years, 9.5. So it's just been a weird friendship, but it's just one of the ones that just makes my life so happy. So thank
Same
you for
here.
agreeing to come on and to share your story with us. I know a lot of your story, but I don't know a lot of the details. So I told you I was really grateful that you come on because I get to learn things that I didn't know before. So why don't you start out by telling us just a little bit about where you were born and tell us about your family and how you grew up, siblings and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll just talk a little bit about your mom and what you know about her.
Yeah. So I grew up in the south of France, and my family, it was my dad, my mom, my sister, who's 18 months older than me, and me, living together. I also have an older brother and an older sister that were from my dad's first marriage. And they grew up in France, but they moved to the US whenever they were about 13 and 15 years old. And so, I mean, my brother and I are about 20 years apart.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So the whole time that I grew up and I've known them, both of them, they were living in the U.S. and they would come every summer to visit us. So we were very close. They called us every week. So I had them in the U.S. And then at home it was my mom, my dad, and my sister and I. And everybody always say, "Oh, you came from the south of France to the to Houston. It's a big difference." And I didn't realize how simple and small my life was until I came over here.
Yeah.
So it's been a really big journey to
Yeah.
be over here.
Yeah.
What
And
what city in South? I don't know much about the geography over there. Like, what city were you born and
Y-
raised in
Yeah,
France?
so I lived in a very, very small town of not even 4,000 people, somewhere between Nice and Marseille. Those are the big, I guess, south of France cities. So it was about a couple-hour drive from Italy and a 4-hour drive from Spain. So,
Oh,
I mean, you
I'm
drive
not
down
jealous.
no, you drive down the freeway, there's vineyards, on both sides, and it's a hillside covered in vineyards. It's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Um, but yes, no, I grew up my mom, so she was diagnosed with cancer whenever I was 3 years old. And she passed away 12 years later. So I was 15 when she passed away. And the whole time that I between 3 years old and 15, she was sick, and so the norm was she would go to the hospital for a day, for a week, for a month, and always come back home. We talked a lot about the word cancer in my house, but it was never something that was scary to me and my sister because we always knew she came back. So it was just a normal part of the conversation. I grew up with very much, maintaining, having traditions and doing all the very, very normal things. Even though at times she was very sick, she never showed it. She never told us unless she had to, and never really explained to us how bad sometimes it was.
Yeah.
So whenever I look back on my childhood, I had guilt a lot of times because, I prioritized seeing my friends, doing other things while my mom was very sick. But she never said no. She never, she always made sure that we had our life and we didn't know everything that was going on.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Do you think, we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago because we were talking about talking to our kids and telling them different things, like telling them you're sick, but telling like one kid the truth and the other ones you soften it because it's how they can handle it.
yeah,
Uh,
and it was very much like that with me and my sister. After the years went by, my older sister, I mean, she's only 18 months older than
yeah.
me. Her personality is very different than mine, and she's a bit more, she thinks about things, she, worries about things, and I've always been a little bit more of the free spirit of the family that is kind of more careless.
Yeah.
So, and you can see I do sports that are kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
So, I try to live my life without worrying, and my sister always did. And so she asked the questions.
Yeah.
I don't think I chose to ignore, just chose to just not to just take whatever was being told to me. Yeah, as facts and not
Yeah.
really ask any other questions. My sister did, and she knew a lot more than I did.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked about how would, if I tell the kids, I think Lydia and I were talking about mom telling us about if they were sick or something. And I said I would tell Mariah something different, not different, but I would be more factual with Mariah because she's the oldest and she thinks
Yeah,
through
yeah.
things as opposed to, Cody and Ariel who are more sensitive and more,
Yes.
emotional and whatever. When you were growing up, what were some of your favorite memories of your mother? What do you remember most about her, that kind of brings you joy when you think about her?
Yeah, I mean it's everything. I mean it's hard because I just feel like so many years have passed that
Mhm.
I'm starting to forget certain things.
Yeah.
But what I remember of things being was I always wanted to be the one sitting next to her at the restaurant, or I always wanted to be with her in her company. I think the way she talked, the way she explained things,
Mhm.
she was very caring and loving.
Mhm.
So I think that those are some of the things that I remember and I love the most. And just being at home every Sunday, we cooked something. It was either an apple pie or French crepes. We
Yeah.
always did something, and she always just sat at the kitchen. We didn't have in France. I don't know how the houses were back then, but in France, you don't have a kitchen island.
Mhm.
You have your kitchen, and you have a little table in the middle, and that's kind of where you prep, and then eventually you eat there. But we just sat there, and she just cut every single apple, very
Yeah.
thin, and then put in a circle into her pie. And we did this every Sunday. That's what we did. We would watch. She was obsessed with this TV show, The Young and the Restless.
Uh-huh.
So
Still on.
Nice.
I know, I know it's
Long
still
word.
on.
Nice. Was it the American version or
Yeah.
did you have a
Oh yeah,
French
no,
version?
the American
Okay.
version, and it's
Yeah.
5 years behind. And so, you know,
That's amazing.
it would play every day right after lunch. So like
Yeah.
my parents would, and it was on the, during the week, on the weekend, every time. So we would have lunch, and then, she would always go sit in the living room and watch The Young and the Restless. And it was a very cute because every time my older sister would call on the weekends, she would ask, okay, well, so what's happening 5 years
Oh,
from it's it became a thing. And
cute.
it's a lot of these American show, and it's the voice is doubled, so it's like French people speaking over. And that was one of the things that we watched. Eventually we started watching with her. It's a
Yeah.
great show.
What was your mom's name? Sorry, I just wanted
Sure, we
to be
didn't
curious
ask
Oh
now.
yeah,
that. Yeah.
her name was Michelle.
Michelle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Love it.
And what was your dad's name?
His name was Jules André. So
Okay.
Jules and André.
Oh,
I guess I'm not sure how.
wow.
Love
And
it.
how long were they married?
I was actually asking myself that question
Yeah.
on Friday, because their wedding anniversary was this past Friday.
Yeah.
And I want to say, I think they got married in 81,
Uh-huh.
1981, I want
Yeah.
to say.
Do you know
Uh,
where they met?
So they met, yes, and that was one of the very cute stories. And I have a lot of cute stories with my mom.
Yeah.
Whenever you asked about memories. So both my parents were pharmacists, and in France, it's not like you go to Walgreens or Kroger, you have a pharmacy. It's its own shop usually in the town center, so the town square. So my mom had her own pharmacy in one town, and
Uh,
10 minutes over to the other town my dad had his pharmacy. And one day my mom needed something that she didn't have in stock, so she drove over there to his pharmacy to go pick it up. And she met him, and she kind of had a crush on him, so she would always find a reason to drive over there to go see him.
She's always running out of drugs.
She's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm out of Vicodin.
Oh no.
Yeah, so that's how they met. Yeah.
Cute.
Love it.
And do you know how long they dated before they got married? Did they know
I
each other very long?
I don't think I mean,
Uh-huh.
I think at least a year, because if they got married around 80 or 81, then my sister was born in 82, so
Oh, okay.
probably a year.
Yeah.
I think they knew of each other for a
Uh-huh.
while. I think they started, and both, my mom was a little bit, she had me at 37, so she met
Oh,
him in her mid 30s, and my dad was 13 years older than my mom.
okay.
So he was later in life. So I think they kind of got together and got, married a lot quicker than,
Yeah.
you.
I ain't got time to waste at that age. I get it. That age, you're like, we're either doing this or we're not. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
So with your mom and dad, finish telling me about memories that you have with your mom. You said you had a lot of cute ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's little things like, after school. I mean, my mom was, so they worked at the pharmacy every day. We went, elementary school, we were in our own town, and it was, we would walk home, walk to the pharmacy right after class, and we would, come to the pharmacy, and she was working, and she would always give us some change, and we would go to the candy store, get some candy, and then we would stay until they would close down the pharmacy and then go home. And she was a big animal lover. She loved dogs, and my dad didn't
Yeah.
want any dogs because he had dogs in his previous life with, his ex-wife and kids,
Yeah.
and he had to take care of everything. And he was like, I don't want to repeat this. And she's the one that convinced my dad to let
Yeah.
us have a dog. Just a lot of little memories like that. And my dad's
And you sound like
siblings.
your dad because I know your dog drama.
Yes, I'm turning into my dad. And
Lori's husband likes to foster dogs, just random
yes,
dogs.
yes.
Yeah, like, and
We
not
have,
puppies. A Great Dane.
well, no, this one is ours. This one is
The Great
ours.
Dane is?
Oh, yes, it
Oh,
is. Yes. Actually, she's
big
the
dog.
most well-behaved
She
one.
probably is.
My dog is a crazy one, but then
Yeah.
the other one that we did rescue, Cecile, the little tiny
Yeah.
one, she, I probably shouldn't say that on podcasts, but I may murder her one day. Like,
So we're already banned by the dog people. Don't
yes.
worry.
So, but no, yeah, she just, she loved a lot of things. She was very social. She loved her, having some wine. She loved family. We lived very close to her sister and my cousins, and we grew up together. And it was spending time with her. She would tell us all the stories about her growing up, and it was just very interesting. She lived in different parts of France and had different experiences, and so it was, she was a good said she told good stories, and
Yeah.
it was very nice to just kind of sit and chat with her. So
Yeah. She sounds really pleasant and really lovely. What do you mind me asking what kind of cancer she had?
she had breast
Oh,
cancer.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and it's extended. And you said for
Just
15, 13 years, right? She dealt with it for 13 years.
12 years. Yeah,
12 years,
she
yeah.
she's
dealt
a
with it for
fighter.
12. Yeah, it was, and the progression of everything, whenever you look back, especially now being a mom, it's, she was, very healthy, and then she wasn't. And, it kind of became to where, one of the big things that she loved was skiing, because we lived, it's a 2-hour drive to go ski. And eventually she couldn't do this anymore. Everything kind of makes you slow down, and you're unable to do certain things. So that was probably the hardest part to watch
Yeah. Where it
as
starts
a kid.
taking who people are and
Yes.
chipping
Yeah.
away at who they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking. And when she passed away, you said you were 15, 16,
Mm-hmm.
15.
15. Yeah.
What do you remember about that time, or um how much do
So
you think your life changed immediately after you
it,
lost your mom?
I mean, everything changed. And again, I kind of had my head in the sand for a while until that year. So she passed away. So September it was interesting that you asked me to do this podcast in September, because September is a big month. It's when my parents' anniversary was on the 13th. The 21st is her birthday, and then the 25th is when she passed, and then the 28th is when she was buried. So it's a very heavy month
Yeah.
to kind of go through. And
That's
you know uh my dad, when he passed, it was the same. The month of June is the same. It's his
Yeah.
birthday, it's everything. And
Yeah.
so but that year, so in France we have 2 weeks of vacation at the
Mhm.
end of February, and usually we go skiing. This year she wanted to do a big trip. She was like, I want to go to the US. I want to go. So we did a cruise in the Caribbeans,
Mm,
and my brother came and joined us. My older sister was in law school, so she couldn't come on the cruise, but then she met us in Florida, and we went to Disney World together. So we did
yeah.
this huge trip, because she knew that was going to be her last trip.
Yeah.
And so comes around May and June. I mean, it was really bad. She was really, really sick. And that's where I was being kind of told, well, I don't think she's going to last much longer.
Yeah.
And, but then she felt better. She's starting feeling better. And so over the summer, what I saw was her being better. And what I didn't know was, well, that was just extremely temporary. My
Yeah.
dad was already making plans. He was already thinking about, well, what am I going to do? With the girls, with me and my sister. And so my brother came to stay with us for a little bit over the summer, and kind of talked about all the different options. And then we never really spoke about it very much. And then September rolls around, and I mean, I remember these days like it was, yesterday.
Yeah.
Those are unfortunately some of the memories you that really
Yeah.
sticks with you. We had a couple, so she was at the hospital. We had a couple times where my dad had to come pick us up from school and take us directly to the hospital and spend time with her, because we thought that was it. And, you know, again, and she was okay. We spent time with her and then went home. And then one day, that was it. We went over there, and she wasn't conscious anymore. She was just so
Yeah.
sick and so out of it, her body, but she was still breathing. She's still there. I remember my sister and I laid on her side for hours and just stayed there.
Yeah.
And sorry. And then we went home and we just, my grandmother stayed at the hospital with her. My dad came home with us, and you hear in the middle of the night the phone ring, and all you hear is, "Oh, she's gone."
Yeah.
I heard my dad on the phone, and my sister and I, our bedrooms, we had a hallway, and then our door faced each other, and we slept with the door open. And that night was so strange. Our dog was howling, and then we got the phone call, and then my sister and I kind of both, we could hear each other take a deep breath and fall back asleep, almost kind of like relief, like
Yeah.
this was over.
Yeah.
And not as, this was over, it's just more, the pain is gone. Her pain is finally gone. And so, and then after that, it was my brother and my sister came back, and it was, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to, because my whole dad's side of the family live in the US. And so it was like, well, do you guys want to go learn English for a year and just do something completely crazy and unexpected and change of pace? And, again, me was, well, I love American shows. I love everything about all of this. People at school have lockers and you go from classroom to classroom. We don't really have that in France. And
Yeah.
so, that kind of took away a lot of the uh worries that I had. My sister was so scared about moving. And so, we did all the paperwork, and then I did my senior year in high school. So over the summer in 2000, we moved, and I started my senior year in high school. My sister did her freshman year of college, and and after that, we're like, well, we've become even closer with my brother and sister. We were always very close, but it was
Yeah.
even closer. And my dad had plans to retire anyway within the next year or so, and he sold the pharmacy, and then he came and visited us for several months at a time. So it changed. I feel like I was given a lot of opportunities to be able to grab on to whatever was positive after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
So your dad didn't come over. You and your sister came over with your older brother?
yeah, so my older brother and older sister always lived in the US
Yeah.
since they were
Yeah.
teenagers. They lived in Arkansas. So
Yeah.
I moved in with my brother and his wife, and then my sister moved
Oh,
in
went to
with
college. Yeah. Okay.
and my sister moved in with my other sister,
Uh-huh.
and then we did that for a year, and then we kind of then I went to college, and my sister stayed in college, and kind of all this stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So where'd you take English class from? Or did you have to take English classes, or you just practiced? You just immersed?
Did you watch the US TV shows? Is that how you learned?
Oh yeah. Well, so at school in France you have to take English, but you
Oh,
can't communicate with that.
yeah.
Whenever I moved to the US, I mean, I was just forced to learn, and then I pretty much just watched MTV with subtitles for a
Yeah.
few years, and that did it.
And that was back when
Great.
they played music, so that's awesome.
Yeah. So
But you didn't learn to do math in English, because she always used to tell me, because she's a controller, so she's a math girl, and she would always tell me, "Oh, I did math. What do you tell me you do math in your head in French? Like you can't."
yes,
She doesn't do it in English in her head. She
I
always
know.
makes
Well,
me
I
laugh.
can't. Mental math is really hard for me, which is
Yeah,
always people always laugh because I'm an accountant, but because I count and I do it in French in my head. But if somebody's talking to me and like I have to respond in English and do mental math, and like I'm like I can't, like I have a
and then she's gonna do
blockage.
it, translate it, and
Yeah, like,
she cracks
but
me up.
That's
no,
funny.
I count everything in French in my head, or
I
She
love
didn't
it.
take English translation of math when she got here. That's fine.
Just because I'm nosy, like, what were your favorite? Like, you said you love the American shows. What were some of your shows you like?
I mean all of them.
Lori likes trash TV. Okay.
Well, because like we're talking like early 2000s, so that could run the gamut of like Dawson's Creek,
Oh,
and so
like
I'm trying to
in
figure like
France. So whenever I was in France, yes, I watched Dawson's Creek. That was I mean I remember exactly the very
Team
first
Pacey all the
episode.
way.
Yes, the
Yes,
first episode
100%.
that was released. I remember that one because we didn't have recording things back then
Like
other than the
DVR
tech.
and stuff.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
didn't have that. So I remember I watched the very first episode of Dawson's Creek in my parents' bedroom because I had a TV there, and my dad was in the living room. So I just remember I was all set to go watch this show. I watched that. I watched 90210, Melrose Place. Those were
Heck yeah.
like, and
I bet those were like on point in French. But that was amazing
yeah,
and
no, that was
dramatic.
great. I mean, for French people, that was, I mean, this is everything. I mean, I can't remember what else. I mean, I did watch, what's that guy, Texas Ranger? What was his name?
Yeah, like Chuck Norris.
Yes,
Norris.
that was a very popular show
Stop.
also.
Walker. Texas
Huh?
Ranger.
I have a
That's
very
amazing.
diverse TV education.
No,
Walker,
Lori's always,
Texas Ranger. There it is.
yeah, Walker.
Yes,
Texas
Walker,
Ranger.
Texas. Yeah, watch that. I mean, so many shows, but yeah, 90210. And that other one, with the car, the with David Hasselhoff in the car.
Night Rider.
Knight Rider.
Yes,
Kit, the car. Yes.
Kit. Oh yeah, the show was named Kit in French.
So yeah, Lori's always trying to get me to watch 90 Day Fiance. She's obsessed with every season, every version,
It's
every
the best
90
show.
days this way, that way, over and under.
I feel like there would
Oh
be so
yes.
much secondhand embarrassment. Like I just don't know that I could handle it.
No, she
No,
loves the show. She
I love that
invested.
show.
She's
Yes.
invested in the show, which cracks me up.
Well, speaking of that, Dorcas, this summer we went to Florida in our usual spot,
Uh-huh.
by Destin.
Yeah.
And one of the couple from 90 Day Fiancé was at the restaurant we were at. So Ron and the kids are walking, into the restaurant, and this lady walks out, and I'm like, I know this girl, but I can't place her. I'm like, I've
Yeah.
seen her so many times, I know it, but I couldn't place her. We go inside the restaurant. We're standing by the little booth, and I hear the voice. Remember, I don't know if you remember, there was Andre from Moldova, and then there's Elizabeth from the US. And so he has a very distinctive accent. And I heard him talk, and I was like, oh my God. I almost asked for a picture, but then I was kind of embarrassed. No, I didn't do it.
Yeah, just excuse me. Excuse me. Oh, that's funny. That's good.
Now I gotta go watch 90 Day Fiance.
No, you
Good
do.
God.
It is the greatest show.
Listen,
There's 90 Day
watch it and then
Fiancé.
get on phone with her, and she'll let you talk about it. I can't do it.
It's
No, I'm
awesome.
scared I can't do it. I can watch documentaries. Maybe if I treat reality TV like documentaries, I can totally
Well, this
watch
is
it. But
kind of, it's like a
not the same.
documentary. It's about these people moving to America on a 90 Day
On a
Fiancé
visa.
visa.
It's too much. I can't do it. So when you moved, what were some of the hardest things, or what was the hardest thing you think to adjust to once
Like,
you moved over?
culturally?
Or was it easy? Or was it
Yeah.
easy just to assimilate and kind of,
At first, it was really easy. I will say maybe the first 4 months, it was really easy
uh-huh.
because it was fun. It was, and
New.
it was new. It was kind of like in the movies. But then I realized that the school I was going to was a very small private school, and it was very hard for me to feel very integrated. So
Yeah.
in Little Rock in Arkansas, there is a plant for private jets where they actually build the private jets that's French. And so there's a lot of French people. And I found myself that I mostly related the most to, to French people there
Yeah.
or foreigners. Like we had a few exchange students at school, and it was it was a little hard for me to make American friends and meaningful friendships because all of these people, not because they're mean or, they were lovely, but all these people had been friends since kindergarten. And so what was really hard for me was after a while, I was missing my real friends from back home, all these friendships. And I still spoke with quite a few of them, and seeing how they're still all together and they live their lives, and I wasn't part of that anymore, and I really wasn't sure what part of what I was in. So,
Yeah.
but then, things were fine. Then, I would go home for the holidays. So Christmas holidays, I went home and then come back, and I kind of just figured out how to make it work. After that. But it
Yeah.
was kind of like the relationships were hard. It was like
Yeah.
nothing, everything was surface. Nothing, I didn't have a true friend.
Yeah.
So
I would
Yeah.
imagine
Did you?
you're coming your senior year of high school. That's
yeah,
a challenging time, I think, for anybody to move because
yeah,
you're
yeah,
about to hit this new chapter and you just kind of cut it off right before then that's
yeah.
gonna like break, you know?
So
So where did you end up going to college?
so my freshman year, I went to SMU in Dallas.
Well, you're doing big culture shock things because I would imagine Little Rock is a culture shock from France, and then a year
Yeah.
later you're going to jump to Dallas, which has got to be it's culture shock for us to go to Dallas.
It
Yeah, we don't
was.
yeah.
We don't go.
I didn't like it. I met some really good friends there though.
Yeah.
I had a couple girlfriends that because and again for me it was I was guided by my sister and my brother. They wanted me to kind of have the whole American experience.
Uh-huh.
And I was excited because whenever I lived in France, like everything American I was obsessed with. I loved, all of it, and I knew I wanted to move to Texas because I love horses. And that's, in my mind,
That's where we have
again,
horses. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
that's where the horses are. And so, I applied to different schools. I applied to TCU, SMU, and my sister was like, "Well, you got into SMU, you should go there. It's a great school." And so I went there and it was great at first. I did the sorority thing, I had a blast doing all of that. But then, the lifestyle was not what I was used to. I went from
Yeah.
a 3,000 people town in France to Little Rock, Arkansas, which is big, but it's small.
Yeah.
And I was in a small private school, and then I got to SMU, and there's like 200 kids in one class, and
Yeah.
I didn't really like it. I mean, that was fine. Then I discovered that my roommates did a lot of drugs, but not just pot, other things, and you know, that wasn't me, and I didn't want to be part of that. My dad was always very strict about, make sure you have good grades. You need to be able to have your own life and afford the things you want to afford. And, one day I'm not going to be here to help. So you need to be able to do all of this on your own. And so, I was somebody who studied a lot. And so, I couldn't, and it was very stressful. And then I miss my sister also. My sister stayed in Arkansas. She knew always what she wanted to do. She wanted to do something in the medical field. So, because my parents were pharmacists, she was always interested in that. Then she was like, well, maybe I want to be a doctor. She turned out to be a dentist, but she went to Hendrix College, which is 30 minutes north of Little Rock, and it's a very small private school. And she was happy there. My brother and sister were 30 minutes away, and I was like, I want to be with them. I don't want to be by myself in a school where there's so much that's out of my control and I didn't really like. And so then I transferred to Hendrix and I moved in with my sister,
Yeah.
and then it was much better.
Yeah. So you spent 1 year at SMU and then went over to
Yes,
yeah.
and then
Okay.
I finished at Hendrix, and then for my master's, because I did my master's in accounting, and Hendrix didn't have a program, so I went back to Texas and I went to Trinity University in San Antonio, which is a school that's very similar to Hendrix,
Yeah.
in size and different things. And so that's kind of how I um, kind of ended there. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And how long and when did so you finished your master's stuff. When did your dad pass away? Because I know you've lost both of your parents.
Yeah, my dad passed away in 2013 in June. So I was already working. I was that day, gosh, again, remember, you
Yeah.
remember these days. I mean, um it was actually promotion day. We had a big party with the different partners of the firm, and got promoted to a manager. And that's when, driving home, my sister, and again, it's one of those things where my brother and two sisters already talked about it, and they called me all together to tell me the news because
Uh-huh.
they know because I'm the youngest one of the
Yeah.
family.
New baby.
And so we were supposed to go. I was supposed to be the first one to go for the summer. The following week, I had my flight already booked to go stay with, because usually I would go home for a month or so. And And it was one of those things, ever since we moved to the US, my sister and I called my dad every single day.
Yeah.
Just because my dad was lonely. And he wanted to know, he wanted to kind of live through us and exactly know what we're doing. And and it was 20 minutes a day. Sometimes we called him several times, and I didn't get a hold of him that day. My sister didn't get a hold of him either, and there's not a day that went by that we did not talk. One of us at least did not talk to him. And so my dad had, I mean, so many health issues.
Yeah.
He had uh, heart attacks. He had cholesterol, high blood pressure. He had diabetes. And he passed away right after turning 80.
Yeah.
And we didn't get a hold of him. And again, lived in a small town. Our neighbors, that was one of my closest friend, in it was her parents' house. And so we messaged her on Facebook, and we're like, hey, can you pop into the house? And that was a childhood habit, you
Yeah.
climb because we had a wall that had a little window like that around the house. And it was like, well, can you climb the wall and go make sure? Because she was like, well, from my house, I can see the light in the living room at your house. And we're like, well, can you go check? And she found him.
Yeah.
He took a nap every single day after lunch, after watching The Young and the Restless, I'm sure. And, and he never woke up.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, well, I'm sorry about
uh,
that. Was that after
yeah.
you had kids, or no? You hadn't had your kids yet,
No,
had you? Okay.
that was a few months before. Well, no, I did. I mean, and then I got pregnant with kids, with Ivy, in August after that.
Oh,
So,
okay. Okay. So he knew
yeah.
Ron. He got to meet
No, we
Ron.
actually never met
Oh, he never
Ron.
met Ron? Well, why did he not meet Ron?
Because whenever I graduated college, I was dating somebody, and then I got married to that person.
Mhm.
And then he would just drink all the time and party all the time, and I didn't want to be with him anymore. And I wasn't ready to tell my dad that I didn't want to be with him.
Uh-huh.
And after once my dad passed, I was like, I can't be with him anymore. And we got
Yeah.
divorced, and I met Ron. And
Oh, okay.
Ivy happened quickly.
Oh, I got you. Okay. So he didn't know you were were you separated, or did you just were not there?
Yeah, we were kind of separated.
Oh,
We
okay.
lived in the same place, but
Yeah.
that was,
Yeah. Okay.
it was,
So you got divorced after that. I got you.
yes,
How long were you
yes.
married the first time?
4 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Decent. That's enough to
Huh?
know you didn't like somebody. I said, that's decent. That's enough to know you didn't like somebody.
Yeah.
You made it sound like 32 minutes for Britney Spears married. Yeah,
Kim
you're married
Kardashian
4
for
years.
like 17
Yeah, Kim
days. Yeah.
Kardashian married. So I got you. So how old were you when you first got married? You were young, no?
I was,
You say right out of college?
yeah, I mean, it was a year after college. So, I mean, I was probably like 22, 23.
Yeah,
Yeah.
young. That feels young, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you
Drinking
have no
the
idea what you want at that age. I mean, like Ivy's not allowed to get married until she's 30.
Yeah,
Because
for
you
sure.
don't know,
Your brain's not even developed enough to know what you want.
you
Yeah,
don't know what you want. You don't know, you don't know who you are. You don't know who you are at work. You don't know who you are
yeah,
at home.
yeah,
You're trying to figure all this stuff out. And, but I thought that's what you did. I didn't really, that's what I saw. My friends did that. I was
yeah,
like, okay, well, I guess that's the next step, So,
yeah. So your dad knew him, and y'all had a
yes.
wedding, and families
Oh,
met, and
yeah.
all that thing. Okay,
Yes.
and you just didn't want to. Okay, well that makes sense. Um, so after you were divorced, how long before you met Ron? Pretty quickly, right? You're saying pretty quickly.
So I had met Ron well before. We knew of each other. I knew him. We had the whole Larry incident, a year
Tell
before.
Mom and Lydia the Larry incident, because Ron tells it and it's really funny.
So my name in the Outlook, whenever you email people, autocorrects from Laury to Larry a lot of the times. So I get a lot of
Oh,
Larry emails.
yeah.
Hi, Larry. Or people just quickly read and they just refers to me as a him rather than a she. And it was over the Christmas holidays one year. So at work, so we worked for a big public accounting firm, and in January, the first couple weeks of January, you had to teach the interns, and so I was part of the. So both Ron and I were instructors, and so we were told before the holidays, we're told, who's an actual instructor and who's a backup. And that year I was a backup instructor. So I was free to go on vacation. I didn't have to come back early because the interns became earlier than eh, working in the Big Four is kind of like a back to school. You have not much happens in the first 2 weeks of the year. So, usually by the third week, that's when you kind of go back to work. And so client had a big thing that happened, and he was like, well, I'm no longer able to teach. So he emailed me, hey, Larry, and essentially, asking me to come back early from my vacation so I can teach these kids. And I didn't have any of the materials with me to get prepared, nothing. And so I sent him a nasty email back and I said, by the way, my name is not Larry, it's Laury. We work in teams when you work at those firms. And so he was making fun of me to his team because I responded, and he was like, compared to, like, I was just, at that time I was a senior, I was pretty young, and he was already a manager, so he was a lot more established than I was. And then a few months later, we never really met in person at that point. It was always emails, like, kind of, and I always was not very friendly to him in my emails, and he always thought it was funny. And then we got assigned to the same job. And so it was a job out of Dallas, and I'm literally flying there, and he's going to be my boss. He's the guy I'm going to be reporting to. And I'm like dying inside. I'm like so embarrassed because he already thinks I hate him, and then he's going to be writing my evaluations, and I'm like, this is not good.
Larry is not a nice person.
Yes, Larry was
Larry
not
is
a nice
snarky.
person. But then we got to know each other, and we became friends, and then eventually we started seeing each other, so we had to ask to be put on different clients because we
Yeah.
couldn't work together. Yeah.
That's good. I love that story because you'd have to really know Lori, know her personality, and then
Yeah, you don't look like Larry.
no, she look at Larry.
You don't
But
look like Larry.
her personality is so funny, and like just, and I understand why you don't like interns.
Yeah.
We have a mutual dislike of having an internship program at work.
Oh yeah.
Hate it. Hate everything about it. But her husband, now I don't know, I don't spend a lot of time with Ron, so all I know is what I see of Ron, and he's so peaceful and so, like, zen. At first, it cracks me up that he would just be like, Larry, Larry.
Yes.
Oh,
So yeah, no, you would never think he would say bad things about somebody, but he
well,
did.
it's okay though, because then he married you.
Yeah,
It worked out.
it worked out.
So tell me, you said that you got pregnant pretty quickly after you met Larry. She met Ron.
Yes.
You and Larry, Ron and Larry. And so how soon after that did you find out you were pregnant with Ivy?
It was a few months, like 4 months, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, it it was a surprise, but also expected surprise. I mean,
Mhm.
if you
Yeah.
play with fire, it happens. But I feel like my past 4 years of my other relationship were very much wasted in a lot of ways, at least for me. And I'm not sad about saying that. Because, I had to put up with things I didn't want to put up with. And all I really wanted was what I saw other people have, was a family, kids, and kind of have just, a simple life again. I was tired of, like, you know, living to go out all the time and drinking with the friends, and I just didn't want to be, I wanted to start being home more and having a real house. And but he was, my ex wasn't like that. And
Yeah.
with Ron, I saw that, and I just really liked his personality, and I was like, he's a great person. He's complete opposite of me. And he this is kind of where I understood that he was the right balance for me to be a
Uh-huh.
better person. Not like I was a bad person, but I mean, I do still get angry quickly about things, but my
You're just
patience,
spicy. That's all. You're just
yes.
spicy.
But I've learned to be more patient, because I'm able to observe somebody, qualities in somebody that I don't have and I'm learning from.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I knew that he was the right person for me. And now we have Ivy and Wes, and they're the most
Yeah.
beautiful little kids out in the
They
world.
are. They are. That
That's so
Wes is a mess,
weird.
man. That Wes is a mess. I love him.
Oh
He
my
always tells me
gosh.
when you get on the phone with him, like we FaceTime all the time
Miss
during COVID,
Dorcas.
and he goes, "Miss Dorcas, your hair is so pretty." Like, I freaking love this kid.
Oh, he'll
And then like
tell
a hype
you.
man, a
Yeah.
little kid hype man.
Uh, okay,
Oh
so you
yeah.
had Ivy, and then I remember when you got pregnant with Wes, or not
Wes,
got
yes.
pregnant, but when you told us you were pregnant with Wes, because we were sitting together, we were at Clean Line, and we were sitting next to
Yes.
each other. And she told me, and I got so excited. But yes, I remember you having Wes. So what was it like? Okay, well let's talk back before we go to Wes, because that little kid. He's his own little story, and we got some stories about him because he's French and he's a lover, man. He is a
Oh
lover
my
of
God.
the ladies. Wes
Oh
is.
yes. He
He's either
wants
going to be
something.
he's either going to be a lover or he's going to get a felony, like one of them.
Oh yes. Oh, that's what his teacher told me one day. He's like, in life, he's gonna be a leader. He's either gonna be a big CEO or he's gonna be leading a gang in jail.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what
one of
we
them.
say about our youngest. How
Yeah.
old are they? Because they can be besties and they can yeah, our joke is that we're saving up and it's either going to be like the baby is either going to go to college and be the CEO or she will be a prison gang leader.
And
That's
she's going
Yes.
to need the lawyer.
exactly one of the two. It's either going to go to college education and get her MBA or her attorney's fees. One of
Yes.
the two. We're not sure
But
yet.
they'll be either way, they'll be
Or
very
bail money.
successful.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. They will rule the roost. They were going to rule the world. It's going to be rule the yard.
Yeah.
Or they're going to
For the boardroom.
yeah, rule Wall Street or one of the other. Yeah, or Rikers.
These babies are just misunderstood. Y'all are just misunderstanding them.
No, I
No, Wes
understand
will come up
completely.
to you. If Wes wants something, he's like, Mommy, your eyelashes today, they're so beautiful. I'm
Such
like,
a lover.
yes, Wes, what do you want? I'll give you everything.
Take it.
That's amazing.
Well, roll back with me when you found out you were pregnant. What were your first kind of
With
thoughts?
Ivy,
Yeah, with Ivy. When you first found out you're pregnant with Ivy. Because
I
you're
was
not
just so
married, you're a new mom,
oh
you're
yeah,
out of
no,
a
it
new
was
relationship.
it was a lot of emotions. So that weekend, because I found out in September, because for Labor Day weekend, I went to Tennessee to visit my sister, and we went tailgating at a football game, and drank a lot.
Yeah.
And I remember I was spotting, and I was like, well, that's odd. Anyway,
Yeah.
so drank a lot, and then we went on her in-laws have a farm, and we were in shooting things, like doves and
Yeah.
whatever. Did all of those activities, and then I came back, and I was just in a mood. Like I was angry, I was very emotional, I had a lot of feelings, and I never had my periods, and I was
Yeah.
supposed to. So took a test and it was positive, and just felt peace. I was so happy. I was just so happy. I felt like, a new life, was starting for me, and
Yeah.
I was super exciting. But then, I was a little stressed out because you know, I mean, my family, you know, is more traditional. Well, I guess my real sister, the one that's 18 months older than me, she's a little bit more traditional. You have to be married and then have
Yeah.
kids. My older brother and older sister, they're a little different. They're not as traditional, and so it was really hard for me to tell my sister, the one that's closest in age.
Yeah.
She was the last one to know because I didn't know how to tell her, and I had to talk to my sister and my brother, and like, how do I tell her? She's gonna be so mad, and she was upset at first. But then she was happy. Then she, understood that I was happy, and that was in September time frame, and by Thanksgiving everybody was fine. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and after that it was great because my sister was all the one that's close in age with me. She was also pregnant. Her son was born 3 months before Ivy, and so I got to share that with her. And it was very special for me because my dad met my brother's kids. He met my older sister's kids. He
Uh-huh.
met my other sister, Muriel, the one who's 18 months older. He met her daughter. Obviously, did not meet her other son, but I just felt that my none of my kids my parents would never know any of my
Yeah.
kids, and so it was very important for me to have a great relationship with my sisters and my brother because that's kind of all that I have,
Yeah. That's the link to your parents. Yeah.
yeah. And so, the fact that I was able to be pregnant at the same time as my sister and all this stuff, it really meant a lot. And so, and then, then they planned my baby shower and they came to visit. So, it was just, it just earlier that year was just a whole bump in the road really for life. And then,
Yeah.
after that, everything kind of settled. And ever since, I feel like everything's been settled for me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a
So good.
very strange journey.
That's strange. And it's not been that long. That's what's funny is that you're saying 2000 is when you
Well,
moved here, right? So
yeah,
in
in
24
2000.
years, you've had a lot happen in 20 years. 24
Yes.
years, a lot. Um,
So,
let me see. I had something on my mind that I was going to ask
So I was
you.
going to ask about when you found out you were pregnant. I mean, how was that going into, having your first baby and your mother not being here? Like, what was how did you deal with that? Because that's always, a scary thought for me. Like, if you're close to your mother and she's not here,
yeah.
because one, you're going to be a mother for the first time and you had your sisters and all that kind of stuff. But what was that like processing that your mother wasn't going to be here for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was really hard because, I've had kind of put, not like I don't think about her, but all these years, it's just I've learned to not be sad and be able to, go on with life and remember her without being really sad. But now I'm just kind of thinking about, well, you know, did she feel the way I feel towards my child? I viewed her as a person rather than just my mom and somebody who has feelings. And, and it got, for me, the hardest part was not whenever I was pregnant. Um, I thought about it because in a more selfish way, because I want to be able to share this with her. I'd be able to tell her how happy I was. And, and you see, you know everybody on social media, you go, your mom is there for your baby shower, your mom, is helping you pick out things. Well, I didn't have that. I had my sisters, I couldn't complain. But whenever it got really hard is whenever Ivy was starting being, a couple years old, and I'm starting to realize how much I love that little person. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, well, my mom probably loved me and my sister this way, and she knew she was probably going to die. And so that perspective just, you know, it just takes everything out of you, because I'm like, how can you have so much joy and have this fear? And that's where I started feeling so sad. And even, the guilt came back about of, me wanting to enjoy my life and being oblivious to what was going on, and her, you know, letting me be me, and the strength that you have to be able to hide things so well, to not, you know, interfere in, your kid's life in
Yeah.
a negative way. And so that was the hardest realization for me, is not necessarily, at first it was more, well, I'm missing out on all these interactions I'm going to have with my mom while I'm pregnant and wanting to share this stuff. to more of, well, it's really whenever the baby is here and you have all these feelings for a little tiny person and you may not be there for the rest of their life. So
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, a perspective shift that you don't realize until you have kids. Like, it's not,
yeah,
you don't look at your mother the same, you don't see her the
no,
same, you don't see anything until you have kids. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, I can't even imagine
yeah,
having to know that there's a pretty good chance I'm not going to be here for my kids. Like, I can't even think about it 'cause I'm going to start crying with you, if you know that and you have to live every day with that. And I think
yeah,
that's a really big gift that she gave you, that she let you be you
yeah,
and not carry that burden, which is what mothers do. They're usually tuck those burdens in their back pocket and move on because they have
yeah,
to. Um, that's a huge gift that I think she gave you, and you didn't even know it,
Yeah.
until you had kids, and then you start realizing, oh, she was struggling with it. There's so many things that I don't think about, like, my mom and dad growing up, not realizing everything they have to sacrifice to get you where you're supposed to be, until you're trying to keep 3 humans
yeah,
alive and put, food on the table, and, you know,
Oh
not kill your
yeah.
spouse and not kill the dog. You're not able to do that stuff until you actually have kids and get the perspective of having to carry that burden that she didn't have time to deal with her cancer or the sadness of it because
yeah,
she was too busy raising kids, and doing what she did. And that's a huge
I think she
gift,
must have
I
been
think.
I think she must have been very courageous, is what's coming to my mind, thinking, wow, you can see how courageous she was, and to,
yeah.
like
And
Brooke
I
said,
mean, that's how,
let you live your life and try to absorb, she would absorb the pain. That's a lot of courage, you know. So
yeah,
she
she
was
was a very strong
courageous and resilient, I guess.
person.
So,
And
yeah.
that's, when people talk about my mom, that's always what they said about her. It's
Mhm.
just, how strong she was for going through everything she's gone through. And, making sure that we had the best life. I mean, I cannot ever complain about my childhood. I mean, I had an amazing childhood. My parents provided everything I always needed, always wanted. Um, I just knew there was sickness and things like that, but I never had to have the worry of it.
Yeah.
So, it was given a really big gift.
Yeah. Yeah. So you don't have to carry that guilt. That doesn't have to be a guilt for you because it was a gift. It wasn't, it's not your guilt to carry. It was her gift to you that you get to go through
Yeah,
life, or you get to have that life. And then now you get to see that perspective of, what sacrifice it is. And you only know it because you have kids, and you make the same sacrifices for your kids.
yeah,
Um, and you would if you had to make that same choice to give Ivy and Wes peace, in their
yeah.
home, which is what she gave you, was peace in your home, even though she had that chaos to deal with. So that's a gift. So stop feeling guilty about it, man. You don't
She
ever have to think of it as
absolutely,
guilt.
she absolutely would not want you to feel guilty about it. That's for sure. She just sounds like that kind of sweet woman. So
That makes me so sad for you. I don't even know you that well, and that makes me so sad for you. Makes me think, because I want this question, and this is an odd, not an odd question to ask, but like as you're telling your story, what I'm thinking about, especially like the age that you were when you lost your mom. Dorcas, what was that documentary about the singers, Rory and what's his name?
Mhm. I can't remember, but
It's a
Joey
documentary about
Fleet.
this. Yeah, Joy Fleet, and there's a documentary about she had cancer and all this such, and they had a young child, and she talks about in this documentary before she passed away of cancer, the hardest thing that she had to do as a mother in that situation when you're preparing the fact that you're going to die. Things like preparing her daughter, like little simple things like you need to go ask your dad because the parents always gravitate towards kids gravitate towards their mother a lot, and having to send it makes me feel like it gives me an empathy for your mother. Like at those times, like you said that she knew she was sick when you were 3 for 12 years she had to battle that. I have to think about like the courage that it takes a mother, like you said, to encourage her children to live her life and do all that stuff and having these internal battles, but also mentally preparing, physically preparing for not only the toughest fight of your life, but preparing for the people who are going to be here after you move on. Do you feel like your mother did things to prepare
Yeah.
you for that?
I think so. I mean, in regards to her disease and not wanting me to know all the details, I think she kept that very private and did not want me to know. But we were exposed to, a lot of other things. W- she she tried to live her life as it wasn't, there was no cancer. So I mean, I think we were exposed to a lot of things and got to experience a lot of things. And my grandfather passed away at some point in the middle of that, and we were exposed to that and understood some of this stuff. Even though she was very sick, she unless she was at the hospital, every day she went to work, and she always demonstrated that, being independent and hardworking. She taught us, to be prepared in life, to study and to, get us ready for all this other aspect. So, once she wasn't there, she made sure that my sister and I, she contributed to the pharmacy that my mom and my dad were running. She made sure that that was going to be an asset for us to have later, so we can afford going to school, because she knew my dad was older also, and he wasn't going to be around forever. Um, and so both of them made sure that everything was in place for us to be able to live and be comfortable and not to have some of the worries, like, more financial worries. So that was, I would say, their number one priority for them was making sure financially we can be, and that we are aware of what it takes to work hard in order to sustain this. So, we don't struggle in life. And I think, I mean, they've done an amazing job at showing us that way, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Fast forward to, oh, go ahead, Lydia.
No, I was gonna ask. I was gonna say, you. So in the story, like you've had Ivy, which is the cutest. I have a friend with a kid named Ivy. Cute name. You're a new mom or whatever. What do you feel like are the mom characteristics or the mom whatever's that you got from your mom that you brought over to being a
Yeah,
young mom and stuff?
it's really hard. It's really hard for me to know. And that's one of the hardest thing for me, is like, because I don't remember her. I don't remember my mom when at Ivy's age. I mean, well, she's 10 now, but the memories, it's really hard to figure out how she was. I mean, I know my mom was very black and white, and I feel like I'm a little bit like that. There's not a whole lot of gray with me. It's very hard for me to know what characteristic I have. What I can see though is in my sister. I see it in my sister. I think I'm more like my dad, and my sister is more like my mom. And the way all the empathy my sister has towards people in general, and the way she cares about things, that was my mom. And so not like I'm not, I don't have empathy or anything like that, but I have more of my dad's empathy. It's like, well, you're gonna have to suck it up now.
Yeah. I feel for you, but it's time to move on.
Yes, but
Same.
I observe it in my sister, and that's where I do get a little sad, because I am not sure what characteristic I have of my
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah.
Now I will say I'm going to France next week to visit my aunt, my mom's sister, my
Mhm.
cousin, her daughter is getting married. So that will be a great question for me to ask her.
Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what she has to say. I think because did you learn to cook from your mom? Because I think you're a really good cook.
Yes.
Everything
Yes.
she always posts stuff on Instagram, and it always looks so pretty and so French. It's like, she doesn't just make spaghetti. She makes it this fancy,
I will
whatever. She's like
say,
making, but what are you at macaroons or what are you making? Those little cookies, little
oh, Madeline.
madeleines. She's always baking
Yes,
madeleines.
I have on my mom's cookbook, and I do like to cook. I do enjoy. I find it relaxing. I will say this is a quality my sister did not get. Please do
See,
not edit this. Make sure you keep this in. She could not cook.
so you got that from your mom.
Love that.
That's
No,
good.
Dorcas has talked about your cooking before because, like, I try to bake bread and I tried to make baguettes like last Christmas, and you weren't able to come to the Christmas party. But I was telling her, I was like, oh, I don't think my baguettes are going to turn out good. She's good because Lori's probably going to come, and if you serve a French lady bad baguettes, she's going to have something to say about it. And I was like, never mind, I'm just going to make my artisan bread. That's fine. My baguettes.
I would have never said anything, Dorcas.
Oh, she would have said something.
Like, with the baguettes, like, what is this? What is this nonsense?
She totally would have said, "Who made these? Not me. Not me. I didn't make them. Not me."
So
She
you
brought
gotta come
over
on
the
and
other
teach me how to
day.
make baguettes.
Yes.
She brought over the other day little they started out as like mini baguettes or something, but then they looked like little. We just started calling them because they were hard as rock, and they were misshapen. And I'm gonna tell you, she started calling. We were like bread penis. That's what it looked like.
They looked like penises. They had little bulbs on the end, and it was just like they were breadsticks. I was trying to make homemade breadsticks, and
they were like this. And it was just.
So, how did I not get a picture of this?
I don't listen.
I got them over like Dwayne eat them. I was like, here, eat this penis bread because I can't. I try though. I think I should get an A for effort.
I think so.
Thank you. I'm going to get better. I'm going to just keep trying because next I'm going to make sandwich bread. That's the next thing I'm making. I'm going to do it. Dadgummit.
So I think it's the humidity here.
It is.
Yeah,
problem.
no, it really is.
Yeah.
Your ratio of water needs to be worked into the whole process.
Yeah. I think I always put, the recipe calls for like 2 cups. And so I put the 2 cups in. I don't put like a cup and a half and get it in as it needs it. I feel like it has too much. So it's really dense. When you break it up, it's not as goofy.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, it's definitely not a French baguette. I don't know if it's a half Mexican, half breed baguette or what it is, but it's not. She's working on it. The artisan bread is good. Now, the artisan bread, you do really well.
Thank you.
But the French baguettes are penis bread. I don't know.
They were just hard. They were hard on the outside, really not, and they were like undercooked on the inside. And me and her daughter, we're just standing there like, we ate them. Because they were delicious, but it was not,
good.
You know, it's fine.
Well, you still got to eat it.
Yes, it's fine.
Moving on.
Yes.
So, Laury, what are some of the greatest lessons you think you've learned since having kids? What have you learned from old Ivy and Wet besides patience?
Oh, I was about to say, well, patience. I don't know so much. I'm learning so much being with them. You know, it's I don't know. It's
Wes is what?
7.
7. So he's still young.
Yes. Wes is a
teaching
mess.
you all kinds of stuff.
But you know, Ivy, she's kind of getting into the age where she's more aware. You know, she's a little bit less in La La Land and a little bit more observing of everything around and what we talk about and what we do and what we're interested in. And you know, right now for me with her, I just want to share everything. You know, I want to be there as long as she'll let me, because I know one day she probably will want to be with her friends. But even now, you know, she makes me a priority. And because I really do love spending time with her. You know, it's whether we go to the barn or on Sunday, I need to go shopping for this wedding. I need some outfits, and she just wanted to come with me and just hang out.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know, it's just, you know, both of them are teaching me what I've been wanting to do, and it's been hard is to kind of slow down.
Yeah.
And even though I've been wanting for my life to slow down, it's still hard to make it happen. And, you know, taking the time to be with them and do the things at their pace is, you know, it's hard whenever you're used to moving at a fast pace. And I'm always at a fast pace. I'm always overscheduling everything, doing a million things. And, you know, even with work, I mean, you know, we've worked together. I'm always giving 150% for people who don't even care about what we do. And, you know, I'm learning to, well, you know, doing what's expected of you and also having your family is what's important. And so, you know, I'm learning to prioritize them because for so long it's been work, 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 and that comes from, again, I think that comes from my parents. It was, you got to work. You always have to do your best. You always have to do everything perfectly. I really took it too hard sometimes, and I do too much. And now I'm learning to, well, you can still do a great job, but you can also live with your family and do all of those things. So yeah, I think, I mean, you know, patience is one thing, but just learning to live is really what they're, teaching me. So
They're great kids. Tell Mom and Lydia about Wes on the boat. About Wesley when he was with that girl. Wait, go ahead, Lydia.
Well, I was gonna say, are you the friend who didn't know she was pregnant till like 6 months?
No, that was Aaron.
that was
Okay.
the other one.
Okay, sorry, never mind.
Oh, I knew right away.
Okay.
No, when tell
West
them
on the boat. Which one was
with
that?
the babysitter or the aunt or the cousin
Oh
or
my gosh.
somebody
Oh my
that he
God.
wanted somebody to
Yeah,
sort of
my niece. It was, I can't remember how old he was.
not old enough.
No, it was maybe 3 years ago. I guess he was like maybe like 5. I don't know.
Yeah.
We went for Labor Day weekend. We went to Hot Springs, Arkansas. So we rented a house on the lake. My brother and my sister drove down, and we drove up there. And we also, with the house, we rented a boat. And so we were all bathing suit. We're, doing the tube. We're swimming in the lake. Anyway, and he's sitting next to my niece, and she has really big boobs. And she's in a bathing suit, and he looks at her. He's like, well, no, my niece was like, oh, where are you going to sleep tonight, Wes? And because Wes does not sleep by himself, like ever. He has to sleep with somebody. And he told her, well, I'm going to sleep in my bed. And I was like, really, Wes? Are you going to sleep in your bed? And was like, well, if she puts me to sleep, yes, with those, like pointing at her boobs.
Sleep with so Wes gonna be a felon or
Yes. And then
he's just such a cute little.
I know. Well, he's done the same thing to my sister at the beach. She was, we're sitting in her room. We're unpacking because whenever we go together, and we rent a house, and we're sitting on her bed, and we half unpacked, and he comes in, and he comes over, he touches her boobs, and he's like, "Are those real?" like, and then he's like moving them around. I'm like, Wes, like,
It's so funny because I can't, like if little boys see their dads do that, but I can't even imagine Ron doing anything like that he got that from him. So Wes is just he's out raw dogging life.
I know. I don't know where he gets it from. Like, he just rolls with things because this is not Ron. But he has a girlfriend. Like,
oh, does he now?
oh yes. Well, in kindergarten he had a girlfriend.
Uh-huh.
And then, I mean, the teacher had to separate them because they would kiss all the time and all this stuff. Anyway, then they broke up. In first grade, I was like, well, is she still your girlfriend? And he's like, well, no, she's still kindergarten, Mom. And then, so now in first grade, he got this new girlfriend, Eleanor.
Yeah.
And so I thought, so Eleanor is no longer in his class. So I thought he was done with her. And I asked him, and he was like, and every time he talks about Eleanor, he blushes. They're still a thing. It's hilarious.
She's in a different class now. Like, that's like long distance.
Oh yeah, it's long distance. He's such a little lover. Like,
listen, he's full French, man. He's got all the French.
Yes.
Do you teach the kids, Ivy and him? Do you teach him French?
No.
Do you speak French? I mean, I know you do, but.
Yeah, I'm not teaching them French. Ivy a little bit. She does Duolingo. We took Ivy for a few months to a French school on the weekend, and she hated it because she was like, Mommy, I'm in class all day, and I don't want to spend my weekend. I want to do other things with you. I don't want. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then so now she learns on the app. She knows quite a few things. Not, she can't hold a conversation, but she knows a lot of words. She knows. I'm not really worried. I didn't learn English until I moved here when I was 15. So I think if they really want to learn French, they will. The problem is, I have a full-time job. Ron has a full-time job. Whenever we come home, we only spend so many really little hours together that I wanted all of us to be able to communicate in the
Yeah.
same language. And then Ivy's never been, you know, she's not the most athletic. I mean, she rides horses with me, but she's social. And I also didn't want to have her immersed in French because it takes their speech away for a while when they're young. Like they're delayed in their English. I mean, they understand everything you say. They just have to work their brain a different way, so they can't. So it's harder to speak both languages. And I was always impressed with, I mean, how well Ivy could talk, read so early on. I was like, I don't want to mess with that. And I just decided, the day she actually wants to do this, she can,
Yeah.
and I can talk to her in French. And Wes has no interest.
Yeah.
He's like Minecraft and Roblox and,
Well,
and I'm like,
Loving we women in English.
I would say, but when
Yeah.
he gets older, if the girls know he speaks French, he
Well,
will write his own the ticket.
I
Yeah.
let them tell me when they're ready for things. Like,
Yeah.
Wes is not somebody, he's a homebody. He doesn't like to go anywhere. But lately he's interested in like big cities. Like he's been dying to go to New York. So we went to New York. His dream is to go to Paris. So we'll go to Paris and maybe it will make him one day, want to be able to interact. Because with my sister, I mean, I talk to my sister every single day in French.
Yeah,
And
she
they
does. Because
know
I
that.
used to get to work and I'd sit at my desk going, she's coming up.
Whenever, if it bothers them and they want to speak it, then,
Yeah.
I'm all here for that. But I'm not going to fight them to do something, they're not ready for because it's just exhausting.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to fight with them.
Understood. But you
If
and
you
I
get
would ride
really, really
horse.
mad at them and like scream at them, you need to do it in French and really freak them out.
Oh, well, sometimes, yeah, a few French words are blurted out just because I cannot contain.
It's easier.
I was like, do you use it against Ron?
Sometimes. But Ron's been around me and my sisters enough now that he doesn't really speak it, but he knows
Yeah.
exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. And he probably just doesn't even care, does he?
Nope.
What do you want to be your legacy for your kids? What do you want your kids and family and all that in the end? What do you want your legacy to be?
I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, I think I want them to, be, caring people. I mean, I think I want them to just grow up to be amazing people and just, be respectful and tolerant of everyone, be driven individuals. And, I really want, one of the biggest life lessons that my parents taught me is to work really hard. And I want them to know that and do that because, um, you know, money is not everything, but it will give you some freedom and be able to have, if you're worried about something, well, that's one less worry. And that's something you can probably control and learn to do early on. So, I mean, I think I want to teach them that lesson. And then, that kind of comes from me. And then the rest is a lot more from Ron, just being, he's so nurturing and loving and caring. And, you know, those qualities I really want, a lot. I mean, Ivy is such an angel because she takes a lot from him.
Oh,
I
does
will
she?
never admit it in front of him, but she's a very thoughtful, loving person. Not
Yeah.
that I'm not, please don't get me wrong, but
I think you're
it's
lovely.
it's harder for me to love people than it is for her, and I
For her.
see that uh because of him.
Yeah.
So
Well, I love that. And I love you. Thanks for coming on
I
here.
love you too.
And thank you for sharing that. I know that was hard because it brings up old memories and it brings up heartbreak. But I think hearing your story one lets me know a little bit more about you. And I already can see like where you would get that from your mom because I do think you're loving and caring and empathetic. You've been a great friend and a great partner to work with. And I miss
Oh,
you
thank
tremendously. And
you.
honestly, my life shifted because of you, because of you're the reason I got led into this new position that I'm in, and you're the reason that I moved in that. And you've helped me grow and do things. I know when I was talking about negotiating salary and things like that, I was, well, Lord, like, do I do this? You know, so
Ask
you've
for
been
more.
really,
Ask for
that's
more.
you were very instrumental in my life and have helped guide my life. You've been a great friend. So I'm
Well, I
thankful
mean,
you came on here today.
right back at you. I mean, whenever I took this job, where we met, I mean, it was, it was so scary, and everything was coming from all over the place, and I knew you were somebody, I could, I could trust and depend on, and and work with you, and I would have, every opportunity I would get to work with you, I would take it. It's just, it's like you said, we don't have the same interests outside of
Yeah.
life necessarily, the same friends, the same, we don't live in the same part of town. But, spending all this time with you, I've learned, it's kind of like spending time with Ron. It's like I put you guys in the same category. It's like I learned so
Aw, I'm
much.
not as sweet as Ron.
You are. You helped me be a better person. At work, you've helped me so much in, dealing with all these people.
Yeah. Well, I tell
You've
Lori,
been,
you do the math part. You do the like, if I had anything
yes.
technical, I would tell her, hey, figure this out and I'll call so and so for you because I can do with people. And she didn't like people, but she did math good. I would say, figure out this budget thing and then I'll go do this. So
Translate it from French to English and then tell her.
yeah,
And
it
then
was
there
a
you go.
good, but it was a good partnership because the things she
It
didn't like to
was.
do, I would just take. And so I didn't like to do, she would take and we'd get that done. So it's a good partnership and
So
I
you've
do
been
miss
a
it
great, great
tremendously.
friend.
So,
So
Well,
and we
Lauren,
had lunch.
we've heard a lot of lovely things about you, dear, and it's been a pleasure to meet you and get to know
I
you
know
too.
I'm almost embarrassed that I still haven't made it to the Nutcracker Market or your Christmas ornaments.
Both are on
But
the calendar already.
if I tell you I'm coming, then I'm not gonna come. So you just have to like remind me at the last minute.
I know. I'll send you the dates for both because we already have all of that on the calendar. I can put you in the group chats. I can put you in all the things. So I will get that on your calendar so you can go with us this year.
Yes.
So thank you everybody for tuning in again to an episode of The Mother You Know, The Woman You Don't. Be sure to check us out at themotheryouknow.com and everywhere on social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and listen wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to leave us a rating. We would really appreciate it. So until next time, we'll see you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.